On June 17, 1977, 7 ladies were inducted as the first African American female firefighters of Georgia. With tenacity and courage, these women led in the fight for gender equality in the labor force, while leaving a legacy of racial tolerance during the aftermath of the civil rights movement in the Deep South. Over time, modern Atlanta has become a melting pot of diversity. Whether it's been through racial equality or gender equality, the city of Atlanta is slowly progressing into an environment that's impartial for all. Still, in regards to the labor force, inequality for females in positions such as firefighting has been an uphill battle. Despite today's vigorous support for gender equality in extensively physical careers such as firefighting, success in this workforce for women and especially African American women can be highly contributed to firefighter Molly Williams of 1818. Molly Williams was a slave who was recorded to have worked in Ocean's Engine Company Hill in New York City. She is remembered for her efforts during the blizzard of 1818, where she proved to be just as good as her male colleagues. Her diligent mentality could be still seen on the hearts of women facing adversity decades later. Just 37 years ago, there was political uproar over the injustices of African American men and women. They were discriminated against because of the color of their skin or gender. During this time, African Americans and women in general were the underdogs of society, but these 7 extraordinary ladies didn't let that deter them from being pioneers for females aspiring to be firefighters and leaving a legacy for women to come. It wasn't until after the Civil Rights Movement that there was an era of Reconstruction, a second Reconstruction, which is what historians call the Civil Rights Movement of the 1950s and 1960s. This was a time in which African Americans were truly emancipated. Because of this, Congress passed Public Law 88-352 in 1964. This provision of the Civil Rights Act forbid discrimination on the basis of sex as well as race in hiring, promoting, and firing. Even though blacks were still mistreated, this provision was one of the main reasons why the first African American female firefighters were able to excel in a field dominated by white men. During the Civil Rights Movement, the African American community pressured Atlanta's city council and mayor to integrate the city's fire department. But it wasn't until after Public Law 88-135 that people actually started to integrate. Fire Station 16 was created to house the first African American firemen in 1962. Later, it went on to house the first African American female firefighters in 1977. January 38, 1978 was a momentous day where a raging fire nearly destroyed the Lowe's Grand Theater in downtown Atlanta. This was the first fire fought by 22-year-old Lumenia Jenkins and 26-year-old Sheila Kirkland. Naturally, they were apprehensive and concerned about their performance in their debut. They were also observing the reactions of people in the crowd who seemed to be watching them when not looking at the fire. There was this woman and her friend in the background who couldn't figure out whether I was a man or a woman because of the equipment I was wearing, said Mrs. Jenkins. The introduction of Miss Jenkins and Mrs. Kirkland to their first working fire experience came less than a month after they and 5 other black women finished a grueling training period with 92 men. By doing this, they effectively discredited the long prevailing myths that made it unthinkable for women to even consider firefighting as an occupation. They were told they didn't have the strength or stamina to raise ladders, lug hoses, break into buildings, and carry victims to safety. They were also told they were too emotional to handle the formidable confrontation with death and disaster that comes with the job. These myths were further proven wrong when out of the 92 men and 7 women, only 26 recruits were hired and Liz Summers, a 31-year-old mother, placed at the top of the class. Even William Hamer, an affirmative action director for the Bureau, stated that they had survived 6 months on the job and so far not a single one had shown a sign of wanting to quit. He also said that they had done fine and there was no noticeable breakdown in morale. In addition to the trio of Jenkins, Summers, and Kirkland, the contingent of women rolling the horses, washing the engines, and fighting fires in Atlanta were Emma Morris, Sheila Calloway, Janice Jones, and Lisa Brown. Despite the impressively strong-willed behavior displayed by these women, the fight for gender equality in the U.S. labor still had a long way to go. They had many difficulties, such as
fighting for others, and it made it kind of difficult.
15, I was greeted with my lieutenant at that particular time, who told me that I was not welcome. I didn't need to be there.
Before 1977, a woman firefighter in Georgia was unthinkable, and although there have been major improvements in the field since then, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that in 2012, women made up only 3.4% of the nation's firefighters. In comparison to the non-existent statistics of the early 70s, this can be considered an improvement. However, it is quite evident that society still has a ways to go. This gender gap is largely attributed to the high physical demands required for entering said work field. Fortunately, many women continue to pursue these previously male-prevalent careers with the same ambition marked on their hearts as the women before them. Our numbers are growing every year. With the increased visibility of those currently on the job and many outreach efforts, awareness will continue to grow among young African American women that firefighting and rescue work are fields that offer them great opportunities and even greater rewards. Even though racial and gender equality has come a long way, it's still not over. 26 years later, and Liz Summers, one of the first female African-American firefighters, is still going through the discrimination she faced in 1977. On February 6, 2003, a court case was held dealing with Liz Summers versus the City of Atlanta and Winston-L. Minor. It was a civil rights claim by Mrs. Summers, and she claimed that she was passed over for a promotion in 2000 because she was a black female. This is in violation of Title VII in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Summers, at age 55, was a member of the Atlanta Fire Department for 26 years. She was deemed to be the best qualified candidate for the position of section chief in both the inspection and investigation section. Instead of being promoted, she was passed over to white males. The jury determined the City of Atlanta guilty and awarded Mrs. Summers what she was due. Legacy is not what's left tomorrow when you're gone. It's what you give, create, impact, and contribute today while you're here that then happens to live on. Rashid Ogunlana. Legacy is about living boldly in the present while building for a brighter future. The greatest legacies are those of faith and character, the kind of legacy that isn't materialistic, the kind of legacy that will stand under pressure, continue to thrive under fire, and is always progressing. According to the wise words of Francis Quarles, becoming fearless isn't the point. That's impossible. It's learning how to control your fear and how to be free from it. That's the point. Necessity of action takes away the fear of the act and makes bold resolution the favorite of fortune. The leadership and legacy left by these 7 women will always be one of courage and tenacity. Their discipline and hard work has left a mark that will never be erased. We left a legacy. We paved the way for the other women, other minorities, not just women. Liz Summers. African American women comprise about 10% of the female firefighters. In 1998, there were 2,700 African American and 9,000 Hispanic career firefighters.
We usually think of firefighting as a man's job, but there were female firefighters more than 150 years ago.
And there are female firefighters today. But
to prove myself a little more. They didn't think I could do the same thing as the next guy. They didn't think I could lift the same amount as the next guy.
Some of the firefighters are preparing to go inside the building.
Well, it just gives you an idea of how courageous these guys are. They are so close to the flame.
In the dark, through the smoke, you can't tell the difference of firefighter. Male or female, black or white, their purpose is to save lives.